What's good, y'all? It's Ty back here. We're going to be reacting to Kenny grading the biggest signings in NBA free agency. Now, look, I was actually live for the first hour of free agency when normally, like, a lot of dominoes fall, a lot of things happen. This free agency has just kind of been, I don't know what the best way to describe it is. Boring? I don't know. But it is what it is. We're going to be looking at the biggest signings in NBA free agency, from Paul George to the likes of Klay Thompson and a sign and trade, all of those types of things. Shout out to Kenny for the video. Chris Paul, another one here. I'm eager to hear his opinion, and I'm going to give my opinions on each and every signing as well. Go sub to Kenny. If y'all haven't yet, I don't know why you wouldn't.
What's the word, y'all? Y'all know me as the internet general manager, so the offseason / free agency.
Oh, by the way, yeah, I got a coffee from McDonald's today. It was 99 cents via the mobile app. I was like, you know what? Why not try it out? It's black coffee. What do you...
Is one of my... Paul George is a 76er. Somehow...
Paul George got 4 years and he got paid.
Thompson's going to be on a different team. I just can't even compute that.
Klay is sad, man.
I cannot wrap my brain around that. And a lot of other people got paid. So today we're going to be looking at some of the bigger signings that have happened so far, give them a grade, and kind of talking through it. Starting off, of course, with Paul George. So I don't know if this has changed, but...
And I'm not going to lie. Paul George got paid. 4 years, $212 million he got paid.
Paul George decided to sign his contract, or agreed to his contract at 2:31. So Paul George decided to sign his contract at 2:31 a.m.
That's what I'm saying. Like, what are we doing? I mean, I guess if he's on the West Coast, it's not bad, but it's like, what are we doing?
Typical Paul George fashion. The last time Paul George switched teams, it was also at like 2-something a.m. this time. But this, with the 76ers, a 4-year, $212 million contract to go to the...
I mean, the 76ers really didn't have a choice here.
The 76ers are rumored to be one of the few teams that were willing to give him a full 4-year max, and he was looking for his last big payday. The 76ers also brought back Drummond on 2 years, $10 million.
Drummond's a good get for them.
Brought back Kelly Oubre.
Kelly Oubre's a good get.
They brought back Tyrese Maxey on a max contract, and then signed
Eric Gordon
on a minimum. And that's still offseason so far. And they still got some roster spots to fill, so it's not a complete grade of their offseason. But so far, I'm enjoying it. Now, I've made this comparison before years ago, and I don't even remember what player I was referring to a couple years back. But this is something that happens a lot in baseball, so just bear with me. In baseball, you will see a player sign a contract that is 10 years long, right?
Like I think Ohtani got like 10 years, $300 million, something like that.
A 10-year long contract, an 8-year long contract, where everybody and their grandma know that the second half / the last couple of years of that contract, the player might not be worth the contract that you're paying him, but you're not paying him for 8 years from now. 10 years from now, you're paying him for the right now, and that's the way I feel about this 76er Paul George contract.
It's different in the MLB, though. Like, it's different in the MLB with the restrictions, with the way the CPA, like, it's different. Like, I get what Kenny is saying. Like, the 76ers had to make this deal to win now, but it's different in baseball. It's just different.
Because in 4 years, Paul George is going to be 38 years old. And there's no way that he's going to be worth $50 million by the time he's 38.
So if he's not, you got to basically say that these next 2 years, he's worth $70 or $80 million. Like, and I don't know.
But you bite that bullet 4 years from now to get the player that he is today. When you think about all the teams that he was interested in, he told the Clippers that he wasn't coming back because they didn't want to give him the money. He was rumored to potentially want to go to the Orlando Magic. Maybe he used them as leverage. But he was like, I'm going to a team with a bunch of money, whether you like it or not. And the 76ers was my number one spot for Paul George because it allows him to kind of be this third fiddle after trying to be the second fiddle over the greater part of his career and basically failing to get that championship. Now,
I mean, you could say Paul George is the third wheel there, but I mean, he is good still. Like, saying like he's third, like maybe score, like he's good though.
Play alongside Joel Embiid, and he can play alongside Tyrese Maxey.
Like he's just as good as Tyrese Maxey.
So I'm kind of looking
at
this with Paul George / this iteration of the 76ers as like this 2-year window, maybe even
that's how I look at it. It is really a 2-year window.
3-year window for them to finally get that Larry O'Brien trophy.
Is Paul George at 37?
The 76ers got eliminated in the playoffs. That this next stretch might be the last chance you get with Joel Embiid and his star power as he's hitting 30 years old to potentially.
And Joel Embiid, I mean, the wear and tear on his body. It'd surprise me if at 35 years old he was still doing what he's doing now.
And
it just would.
He had all of this money, and if you ask me, they're using it the right way, even if that means that you
overpaid. It wasn't overpaid, but they had to do it.
Career. The fit is seamless, though. The fit is as good as a fit you could get for Paul George. Like, all the other options, whether they're going back to the Clippers, that window had closed last year. It was over. You couldn't convince me, even if you went back to the Clippers, that, oh, they could do it this year. Nope, the window had completely closed. You think about the Orlando Magic, that's a young...
I'm not going to hate on the Clippers. If they would have stayed healthy, they'd have been tough.
Coming team, but I don't know if Orlando Magic signed Paul George, and I started looking at Paul George / the Orlando Magic as this team that's going to win the Eastern Conference.
Orlando's not there yet.
And you really have to have the conversations, at least as of right now, between the Boston Celtics, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the New York Knicks, and I guess the Bucks. The Bucks haven't done anything just yet. They said they want to change their roster around, but they're in that conversation.
It will be interesting to see if the Bucks do anything.
And adding Paul George is perfect for that. I mean, the big caveat or the big thing about it is obviously, can they stay healthy, knowing the history of Joel Embiid and also knowing the history of Paul George. Last year, for the greater part of the season, Paul George was an all-NBA caliber player before his injuries. So this is just adding another piece, and I love it. It still allows Tyrese Maxey to be him. One of my things I was a little bit afraid of for the 76ers is going to get a guy that's going to not neutralize Tyrese Maxey, but make it more difficult for him to be the best version of himself. And Paul George is
this is going to help Tyrese Maxey, in my opinion.
Portable players in the history of basketball, where you can put him on almost any team. He's not going to,
because he's going to defend
he's
too.
Play his game, and his game is catch and shoot. Whether my boy Stephen A. Smith believes so or not, he could create for himself. He could create for others. And again, the defense is still pretty good at 34 years old. So I like it. I love that Kelly Oubre is back after the year that he gave them.
Oubre's good. I'm surprised his contract was what it was, and he didn't get paid more. I'm kind of surprised.
See, Nicholas Batum switched back to the Clippers, but it made sense because when he got traded to the 76ers, there was rumors that he was going to force his retirement because he wanted to be in LA for the rest of his career. So he goes back there, and we haven't heard news on Kyle Lowry. I would love to see him back in Philly. But all things are pointing for me to grading the 76ers as one of the...
Do we really want to gas Kyle Lowry at the age of 95? Like, I get it, but he's old. Like, Kyle Lowry is really old at this stage.
Winners of free agency, even if, again, that means that at the end of Paul George's contract, it's a bad deal. But you're trying to compete with the Boston.
And another thing, like, the Sixers didn't give up picks. They didn't give up, assets. They gave up salary, but I mean,
it's
about it.
Knicks of the world, and you have to go out there and pay some players to do it. Let's talk about a move that we liked.
I like this, man. I mean, everybody says, "Oh, KCP got overpaid." KCP is so good.
Paul Pope gets a big
He's
old
so
bag.
good.
Shout out to Kenny Pope. 3 years,
I don't care. He's so good.
With a player option on the last year for the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic are one of the young.
They need shooting.
Basketball, of course, being a playoff team. I think the 5 seed going into the season. And the main question for them is, can they ever learn how to shoot or acquire some people that can? Kenny Pope has been a 4 years in a row of him shooting 40% from 3.
And he's a good defender. Fit right in with Orlando.
Now, obviously, he's not going to have the same playmaking and playing with Nikola Jokic or Jamal Murray and stuff like that. But he's still a guy that I believe could come in and catch and shoot for the first.
KCP can fit anywhere. Like, even if he was in Dallas, he would be fine. Stand in the corner, knock down shots, he'd be fine.
3 years and a bunch of money for him. I really like this signing, considering the circumstances. They did this deal before Paul George, and it made a lot of us think that, okay, Paul George is definitely not going to Orlando Magic. So let's pivot. Let's go get a guy, because I think Gary Harris might not be on the roster. So you're looking at
Gary Harris is back. I think they brought him back.
KCP,
it was a cheap contract.
Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, and Wendell Carter. I did see some rumors that they might be looking at another center. They still got some money, but I like that 5, and they continue to grow together. And with KCP being a guy that has won 2 different championships, he's one of those vets that you desperately need in the locker room when you're a young up-and-coming team. And they paid him a big old bag, but there's no reason not to do that, considering where they are in their cap, where you haven't been able. And
again, there was no real big free agents out there. That's what you guys got to understand. Like, outside of Paul George, it wasn't like there was huge signings to be had.
To extend Franz yet, Jalen Suggs yet, or Paolo just yet, so you can afford to give him $66 million, even if it's a little bit more than what KCP might be worth right now. Good old pickup. I got to keep checking my phone because things are still breaking as we go. You feel me? Still breaking. But KCP, I like that signing a lot. We already mentioned this. Drummond going back to the 76ers. This is dope for Drummond.
5 years a mil.
It sucks for the Bulls.
5 years, $5 million a year. It's a good deal.
Multiple second-round picks at the deadline. We just let him walk in free agency. But hell, I liked one of my favorite Drummond seasons is when he was backing up Joel Embiid. So he goes back there, and I think he's one of the better backup centers in basketball. It's just kind of hidden because the Bulls suck. So you couldn't really see it. But the next thing we talk about is my favorite move of the entire offseason. I'm biased, but because of this man, Chris Paul. But Chris Paul ended up getting waived by...
This is a good deal for the Spurs. It absolutely is. But, I mean, CP3 is old. We can't expect CP3 to be prime CP, but it's still good for Wemby to get the point guard he needs.
The Golden State Warriors. And I'm going to do a full podcast episode with my boy, who I don't want to spoil, just in case his timeline mixes up or his schedule mixes up. But as of right now, the Golden State Warriors are one of the biggest losers of the offseason. Who knows what happens? I think there's rumors that Larry Marketing could be coming via trade. But this is just not the way you run a team. But whatever. Mike Dunleavy, it's not looking good so far. So they waived him because they didn't like any of the trade offers that they were offered. And one of the trade offers that was put to their table was like Zach LaVine and stuff for Wiggins and then Chris Paul. They said, nah, Zach LaVine's contract is too big. We'd rather waive Chris Paul. And Chris Paul went out and signed with the Spurs. I think it was 1 year, $11 million. I can double check that. But
It's exactly what it was.
1 year, $11 million. I can't even find the graphic. Just know he's a Spur. Chris Paul's a Spur. And I will say this, I absolutely love it.
I think Castle needs a guy like Chris Paul too. I think he does. Castle needs to learn from a guy like CP.
Paul was
he wants to be a point guard.
Last year was not a great year. His
last year was bad.
Falling off over the last couple of years. Struggled to stay healthy. I mean, he's 39 years old for God's sakes. And the Warriors experiment wasn't great. It was one of the few times in Steph Curry's career, though, where his team had a positive net rating when he was off the court, which was dope. And a lot of that is Chris Paul coming off the bench. But regardless, it didn't really work out. And he was at this crossroads, right, where, like, I can go chase. I could go to the Lakers. I could go to the Clippers potentially on, like, a minimum. Or I could go to the Spurs, one of the cool...
One of my favorite years from CP was when he was in Oklahoma City a few years ago and brought them to the playoffs. Like, he was with SGA, but I think that was one of my favorite years for Chris Paul.
Up-and-coming teams as a unicorn on it. And I can try to spend the last year of my career potentially helping Victor Wembanyama reach his potential. And I absolutely love that for him, man. I've been watching...
Don't be surprised if the Spurs are a play-in team. Don't be surprised, I'm telling
last season with Wemby being there, but now I might not miss the Spurs game for the entire year. With Chris Paul being my favorite player of all time, and him being 39 and me watching these last couple of years not go great, this could potentially be the last year of his career. He'll never say that.
It could, for sure.
Play until he can't no more. But I love it as a signing because Lord knows that boy Wemby had too many possessions this season where his guards did not get that man the ball. And Chris Paul, one thing he going to do is he going to set you up. So it's my favorite thing. Obviously, it doesn't raise the ceiling for the Spurs to be a championship contender. But having him on their roster where he can help mentor Stephon Castle for at least...
That's my big thing is Castle, right? Castle wants to eventually play point guard. What better guy, or he wants to play point guard, not even eventually. What better guy to learn from than CP3? Kind of similar to Dillingham in Minnesota under Mike Conley. Those are great mentors. They are.
And help Wemby get a real experience. Because one thing you can say about Chris Paul, even at his old age, that brother can still pass the ball like crazy. So... that was my favorite move. And again, I'm biased, but still, I love it for him. Maybe the most random move of the free agency period.
And I know people are wanting this to say this is a big-time underpay. It is an underpay. But the thing you got to realize is Joe Val defensively is not great. At times in New Orleans got played off the floor, and he's getting older. So, I don't know. I mean, it's just a random move, but I don't hate it.
Jonas Valanciunas, 3 years, $30 million to go with the Washington Wizards. I saw a lot of people that are in the know about the draft stuff say, hey, it's kind of a cool pairing to have Alex Sarr and Jonas Valanciunas, but
I mean, my thing is, people are saying that this is going to hurt Sarr's development. It's not. Like, the Wizards aren't in win-now mode. They're going to develop Sarr.
As a guy that has not watched a lot of Alex Sarr, I can't really comment. I was just curious about Val because I thought his market was going to be not ideal, and I guess 3 years, $30 million kind of fits that. I mean...
That's not ideal at all.
Not a lot of money for a start. Like Valanciunas has been a starter center his entire career, and the game is kind of evolving.
He's had some good years.
Where his type of center, this big bruiser, not an amazing rim protector type of center, is kind of going out of the way. But hey, you get 3 years, $30 million, and maybe that can recoup some of your value. My one question is, why did you sign 3 years and not like 2? Right, so you can get back on the market in your prime again. And 3 years from now, Val would be, let's see, 3 years from now,
he's not that old, is he?
Will be 35 years old.
Oh man, yeah, he is old.
I mean, this $30 million contract might.
But it might have been a thing like Val might have wanted a longer contract, knowing he's getting old.
Last bigger deal of his life. So maybe it does make sense to get a 3-year deal. Also on his Basketball Reference, it says his nickname is Big Science. Where did that come from? I've never heard him called Big Science.
Big Science is absolutely nuts.
But yeah, I just think the league is evolving around him, and he's going to Washington for 3 years, and maybe he gets traded halfway through that contract. Regardless,
wouldn't surprise me.
I didn't know what was going to happen. And yeah, he's going.
It's not a lot of money though.
Why did Woj's picture come out with 2 total pixels? Free agent Klay Thompson plans to join the Dallas Mavericks on a 3-year.
They got him in that number 10, replacing Tim Hardaway Jr. Wow.
$50 million deal.
I will say this. The hidden part I don't like about this for Dallas is losing Josh Green. I'm a massive fan of Josh Green. His motor is fantastic. He shot the 3-ball well last year. Josh Green is an absolute gem. I'm telling you that right now. That's the only part I don't love about this for Dallas. But they got better.
Option. Thompson ends his historic Warriors run as part of a Josh Green is going to Charlotte, and this is very low-key. I think Charlotte's having a pretty good offseason where they brought in Reggie Jackson and 2 second-round picks, and then they're bringing in 2 second-round picks to bring in Josh Green. Like, when you're a team that know you're probably not going to go out there and spend money in free agency,
Josh Green's fantastic.
Players other teams don't want, whether it be because they're trying to stay under the second apron or whatever, and getting draft capital in return. It's the way you do it. I also like their coaching signing. So, like, collectively, I think the Hornets get a thumbs up from me from this offense.
I'm excited to watch the Hornets. You know what? LaMelo, Josh Green, they've got Brandon Miller. They've just got so many young pieces. I think the Hornets' future could grow this up. Now, LaMelo has to stay healthy. He has to have a good season
so far. But Klay Thompson, this is just so hard to wrap my brain around because in my mind, these guys, Draymond, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson, is going to play together forever.
And it would have been so cool if they could have.
But no.
It's a business,
Didn't happen. He's going to Dallas. And Dallas also picked up Najee Marshall, and they also
Najee Marshall's good.
In,
the Derrick Jones Jr. loss is kind of sad too, though.
I am drawing a blank right now. Who else did they bring in? I mean, they lost Derrick Jones Jr., which is unfortunate, but he got paid by the Clippers. Shout out to our boy Derrick Jones Jr. Quentin Grimes. Oh my God!
I'm not a Quentin Grimes guy. I'm not. I know a lot of people are. I'll be honest. I think Josh Green is better than Quentin Grimes. Flame me in the comments. From what I've seen, I do believe that.
So long to
has a
get
promising
there.
future.
I did have a procedure this morning, so my brain is still not working. But Quentin Grimes, Najee Marshall, Klay Thompson is their free agent. Of course, they lost Tim Hardaway Jr., they lost Josh Green, and they lost Derrick Jones Jr. Okay, so that's their offense.
They got better for sure, though.
It just feels weird to eventually see Klay Thompson in a different jersey. I'm wishing.
And it's like, are they just gonna have Klay stand in the corner? Are they gonna run more actions for him? How is that gonna look?
But the best. He goes to Texas.
His defense
instead of going to
is
LA
not great
because of the tax reasons, and ultimately he wants to go out there and win another championship. And the Dallas Mavericks obviously was the team that went out there and went to the finals.
Stayed in the Western Conference too.
And Klay Thompson with Luka Doncic as the lead primary creator is very interesting. I think he's gonna get a bunch of shots, generate a bunch of shots. I worry a little bit about their defense. Right?
Me too, because you lose Derrick Jones Jr., who's a fantastic defender. Josh Green, who's a fantastic defender. And yes, Najee Marshall, I don't hate him, but it's like, and I get Quentin Grimes, but you lost defense. You did.
Jones Jr. being gone, who was their main.
You lost defense.
Defender, and defense is so much more than that POA defender. But right now they don't really have that because Klay Thompson hasn't been the best defensive player. Najee Marshall's a really good defender, but you're not starting Najee Marshall, right? The starting lineup is going to be Luka, Kyrie, Klay Thompson, PJ, and then Lively or Gafford. Hopefully Lively. So it's not like they completely lost on that side of the ball. But
they did defensively. They're going to be
curious
worse.
to see who's going to step up and be that guy. Could it be Klay Thompson doing it again? I don't know. After all of those surgeries on his legs and his knees and stuff, I'm not completely sure.
Klay is not a primary. No.
As far as accumulating talent, they obviously have had a talent increase from their championship run, which I think is a win.
My thing. Okay, if they play the Minnesota Timberwolves, how do they match up? Are you going to put Klay on Ant? Like, what is their goal? You put PJ Washington on Ant, okay, then who's guarding Cat? Like, that's my thing. That's my thing when I'm looking at the Mavericks.
I know everybody makes the jokes about Klay Thompson 0 for 10 in the play-in game, whatever. But second half of the season, Klay Thompson averaged 18 points per game. He was back to shooting over 40% from three. He looked closer to Klay Thompson on the offensive side, not necessarily on the defensive side. And if he continues that momentum, because remember, the man had missed a lot of basketball over the last 3 to 4 years or so. If he continues that momentum, this contract is going to look like pennies compared to what his production can really be. It's a steal of a contract for the Dallas Mavericks. It's just whether or not which version of Klay Thompson we eventually end up seeing. But Klay Thompson has had the luxury over his career of playing with Steph Curry, and that allowed him to generate so many open looks because he had this defensive magnet, and Steph Curry, who no team wanted to see leave open, and that left Klay Thompson open, even though he might be the third, fourth best shooter.
But Klay and Steph, they worked well together. Klay took a lot of attention off of Steph, off of Wiggins, off of everybody too.
Maybe second best shooter in the history of basketball. And now with him playing alongside Luka and Kyrie Irving, he might get even better looks, which is crazy.
But I'll be interested to watch some Mavs offense.
So shout out to Klay Thompson and the Dallas Mavericks for making this happen. Of course, it cost you Josh Green, but I think that's something you feel good about. I think you do that 100%.
You do,
of the time.
but Josh Green is good.
The Warriors are just missing out. Missed out on Paul George. Klay Thompson goes for nothing as of right now. Again, it's supposed to be a sign and trade. The things haven't really broke to see exactly what they get back, but I'm assuming it's not going to be nothing too spectacular.
I saw Donovan Mitchell signed a max just, recently. I'm not surprised on that. But, what are the Warriors going to do? That's my big question mark. What are they going to do?
They don't go out there and go get a Larry Marketing or whatever.
They got to get Lowry.
They probably are going to have to panic and go get a Zach LaVine. Real talk. They might have to. Or maybe I'm just...
They might, literally. Zach LaVine is one of the only other guys still out there that you could maybe make the case for. His contract is crazy.
I think, again, I'm going to make an entire video about multiple teams this offseason. I'm going to do a whole podcast episode where I go deeper into it. Because, I don't love the way the Warriors are being ran right now. Steph Curry is on the roster with a bunch of yucks. You know what I'm saying? No disrespect. They did get DeAnthony Melton on the team, which is cool. But you have Steph Curry. You want to build a contender. That team is nowhere near a contender.
I do think DeAnthony Melton's a decent signing. I think defensively he's solid, can knock down shots. I think he's decent.
We got to wait to see how the offseason plays. We got to wait how the offseason plays. But I hate their offseason so far. I hate it. But
I agree.
Not over. We're only a couple days into it. Who knows? They make him swing and do something.
But teams know that the Warriors are in panic mode. They know.
Back to Detroit. 2 years, $52 million. Hey, listen.
I mean, it's fine for Detroit.
There's a salary floor. They had to hit it.
You can't hate on that sign. He's a decent wing to put next to Cade.
Everybody knew Tobias Harris was going back to Detroit for the last 4 months.
Tobias is not horrible.
It was the next contract, and I think Pistons fans can be happy about that. Tobias is a good player. I know he was very disappointing for the 76ers, especially towards the end of that tenure. But compared to what's on the roster, it's a good player. It's a good pickup. It's not something you care about too much if you're not a Detroit Pistons fans. And hell, some Pistons fans might not care about it either. But Tobias Harris can provide something. And then lastly, the best deal.
I like this deal for the Bulls. I do.
Of the entire offseason is the Bulls signing Jalen Smith.
I like it.
3 years, $27 million,
I like
baby. We're up.
I like Stick Smith out of Maryland. I liked him in Indiana. He's going to figure it out in Chicago. He will.
We are up. No. Jalen Smith, if you remember, every year, it's other than last year and this year, I guess, I did these streams, right? I've done these streams of the draft class, and Jalen Smith coming out of college was one of my favorite players in this class.
Mine too. He could shoot, athletic.
I think he was going to be a superstar. I didn't think that was written on the wall, but I thought he was going to be a guy that would have a long, successful NBA career. He ended up drafted to the Suns, didn't work out. He ended up with the Pacers. He averaged 10 points per game and 18.
He fell out of the rotation, but.
And now he's with the Bulls, and he is 24 years old. And the Bulls, again, this is me, maybe it's Cope, whatever. But the Bulls are putting together this young core.
That's what I'm saying. Let Giddey, let Kobe White, let Stick Smith, let these young guys, Ayo Dosunmu, let them play, let them figure it out and see who sticks, see who doesn't fit.
Josh Giddey, Kobe White, Modest Buzelis, Ayo Dosunmu,
Buzelis, I forgot about him. Patrick Williams, yes, too. That was a great signing. They kept him.
Terry,
yes. I'm not going to lie. They trade Levine, let DeRozan walk, whatever. The Bulls are in a fine position. You can hate that they didn't maximize things. I get it. But they're in a fine position.
Phillips, some of these guys, y'all like, who? And then now Jalen Smith. That's 8 guys, 24 or younger on the team. So the rebuild is in full effect, which is dope. I love that we have Jalen Smith on the team. Good rebounder, good shooter. And I think that I'm curious because this is definitely not the Billy Donovan way. But let's assume that DeMar DeRozan goes to Los Angeles to be a Laker.
Get him out.
We'll talk about that in a
Trade
second.
Zach LaVine.
And then maybe we can find a team to take Vucevic. I don't really know.
Vooch got to go, man. He got to go.
Team could be a up and running, fast-paced team, and that's not been the case in any Bulls tenure.
I'm not going to lie. You put Giddey next to Kobe White, Dosunmu, Patrick Williams, and let's say Stick Smith starts. You got some pace. You got some space. I like that team.
Really good under Tom Thibodeau. Or
it's not a playoff team, but I like the team. It's a fun team.
You know what I'm saying? We never really had an up-tempo team, but with Josh Giddey and Kobe White and Buzelis, and they have a lot of people who could get out there and run. And I'm excited to see if that's what the identity of the Bulls turn into. Jalen Smith could be a swing and a miss. I don't know. But if it's 3 years, $27 million, it's worth the try at 24 years old. And I've been talking to some Pacers fans since it happened, and they're like, you're going to love him. I already loved him before he was a Bull. So now
Me too. At Maryland, he was tough, man.
I'm excited about it. The last thing about the Lakers, so far they've struck out on everybody. And it's like, okay,
Yeah, supposedly LeBron said he was going to take a pay cut, and then they didn't get anybody. I'm just confused.
LeBron James said, not for the first time in his career, but his first time for a long time, LeBron James like, hey, I'm willing to take a pay cut if that means we can make some moves around the edges. Boom. Paul George is available. We might be able to get Paul George. No, that don't work out. Boom. Klay Thompson's available. LeBron James calls Klay Thompson himself, say, hey, brother, you want to come to Los Angeles? I've never had a shooter like you in the entirety of my life. You want to come here? He's like, no, the taxes in LA are OD. So I'm going to go to Texas where there's no state tax. And then they continue to strike out. Well, the last big domino is DeMar DeRozan, who grew up a Lakers fan, who wanted to sign with the Lakers before he was a part of the Bulls. And because DeMar doesn't really have a market, you might be able to get him for the mid-level exception. I don't like the fit at all.
DeMar for the mid-level exception? Are you serious? I don't like the fit either, but that's a steal.
I'll say that right now. If I'm the Lakers, I wouldn't do it. But you have to try to do something.
For the mid-level?
Teams around you, like Dallas. OKC, I haven't talked about.
Man, the Thunder are the favorites in the West. I do not care. The Thunder are so good. They got Hartenstein. I don't know if this was before the Hartenstein news or not, but they got Isaiah Hartenstein. The Oklahoma City Thunder are my favorites in the Western Conference. I don't care what people say about Hartenstein. He's going to be so good for that team.
No. Dallas, OKC,
so good for
them. On. These teams are getting better and better and better around you.
Minnesota got better
for the last couple seasons. You can't just be like, we're running it back because Max Christie has a real deal now. You can't do it like that. Like, you have to make some type of decision, and maybe just a talent pool with DeMar DeRozan makes sense. I don't think so, but it might end up happening. Another team I've hated their offseason so far. The Denver Nuggets. Teams around them are just
horrible. I mean, and the thing is, they're going to get Russell Westbrook. What? That doesn't even make sense.
Lost. Maybe they end up with Brody, which will be interesting to see him in Denver. But for the most part, they're losing players. They lost Bruce Brown after the championship run.
I would be interested to see Russ in Denver. Maybe he could get a ring, but I don't like the fit.
KCP's a guy that's going to be hard to replicate. You think about Christian Brown. Christian Brown shot better in this last year of his NBA career, but he doesn't have the volume or the.
I think Brown's going to be fine though. Good 3 and D option.
So they just have to try to figure it out again as other teams around them end up getting better. OKC was phenomenal so far in this offseason.
Huge.
Brought back Isaiah Joe. Brought back Aaron Wiggins on team friendly
Hartenstein's going to be so
and
good.
Went out and signed Isaiah Hartenstein.
$87 million. I keep saying $77 million.
$87 million. And it sucks if you're a Knicks fan. iHeart had built this identity there when he was phenomenal over the last.
Even when iHeart was younger, man, I always thought with an expanded role he would be so good. Now he's going to get the opportunity.
So when Jalen Brunson and him signed with the Knicks, I've said this story before, but I'll say it again. When him and Jalen Brunson both signed with the Knicks, I was more excited about Isaiah Hartenstein because I had no idea that Jalen Brunson was going to turn into what he did. I've been a huge Hartenstein fan since Denver, and him getting his money, I'm happy for him. And it makes sense for OKC to go out and pay him. Like when they signed Wiggins and they signed Joe, the questions on the timeline were like, does the timing of this mean that they're not in on Isaiah Hartenstein? Then boom, it hit 3 years, $87 million. I'm curious to see what the starting lineup looks like out there because they could just move everybody up and start both of these bigs together.
That's the question mark. Are they going to start Chet and Hartenstein? If you paid him $87 million over 3 years, I feel like you got to.
Both of them are kind of seamless. I like Chet Holmgren as a 5 though, but like Isaiah Hartenstein can run some 4. Does it mean that like Alex Caruso's just come off the bench and give you 25 minutes of the greatest defense of all time? I don't know, but those are good problems. And the way they've run their offseason so far, I'm very far away from this right now as we're day 1 of free agency, but the moves that they've made have making me feel more and more comfortable about feeling like they might be.
They're the best team in the West. They are.
My preseason Western Conference.
They are. They are. It's
like, again,
it's the
fact. A lot of things have to happen. I'm sure there's probably some big trades for some teams out there that might change.
Who in the West is going to be better than them? I mean, you could make the case the Mavs could, but the Thunder are the best.
But as of today, I kind of feel that way about OKC. They showed that they're good enough in the playoffs this year. Obviously, they ended up losing in the second round, but like that's their first bit of playoff experience, and I thought they did a pretty damn good job.
The Thunder are
like
good,
defending Luka. They obviously couldn't defend PJ Washington in that series, but like I like their offseason a ton so far, and with players,
Hartenstein's going to be a great fit.
Casey Wallace going to get better. Shea is working out with Canada. I saw a clip today where he had back-to-back threes. I say, hold on. But they have all the recipe to go out there and be a championship contender. So
they got the defense
for
too,
the
man.
offseason right now. Again, we're gonna keep things updated. I'm gonna look at my phone and yep, nothing's broke. So we'll leave it right there, man. If you enjoy, leave it a like, subscribe. Let me know what you think about the.
Go show Kenny love, man. Drop a like on the video, guys. Subscribe if you're doing that. As always, man, I love you guys. Have a blessed day.